Hello, America, and welcome to another edition of Tea Time. My name is Daniel Rangel. I will be your host today. You can find our website at njteapartycoalition.org. And today I'm here with fellow board members Michelle Talamo and Joe Connor. Today we'll be discussing Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Michelle, as a business professional, how do you see the problems with the privacy issues?
I think the privacy issues, Danny, are paramount and should be leading the discussion. And it's been kicked to the bottom, and I don't know why. The website is taking prominence, but what people are not clued into and what's going to affect them and their families is the lack of privacy. Two things. Number one, it says that you have no expectation of privacy on the website. That is scary. You'll be putting in your Social Security number, you'll be putting in personal information, very private information. Mm-hmm. And what happens if people take that, like the navigators, who are not being checked for their backgrounds, and we're not doing any due diligence? So what's going to happen to your personal information? That's extremely scary. The other part of that is Obamacare, ACA, has exempted itself from the HIPAA regulations. So everyone knows when you go into the doctor's office, they hand you a sheet of paper and it says, we've given you your privacy, your HIPAA rights, please sign this paper. Now, notoriously, many doctor offices don't even hand you the pamphlet, but if you ask for the pamphlet, you're entitled to have it. And that tells you how they will handle your information, that they will keep it private, and what happens to it after you're no longer a patient. Because remember, that file is kicking around for a number of years. When you walk out the door, if you change doctors, you still have private information in those folders. So from the personal perspective, and I think people should be really tuned into this, they don't have any expectation of privacy. Their rights are not going to be protected as they are now when you go into the doctor office by the HIPAA regulations. ACA, they've exempted themselves. I think that's very troubling, very troubling.
And like we talked about in the private sector, I work in private sector too, and we are very careful about people's data. I mean, it's a huge issue. And we get regulated, we get reviewed by the government about how we control Social Security numbers, addresses, and all that other kind of data, and I work for a bank. So to think that the government has this website or has this program and they're allowing this information to be in the hands of people who they don't know, and they've exempted themselves from HIPAA, it's hypocritical to say the least.
Mm-hmm. How do you? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around the common person. They'll hear this and they'll say, well, how does that really affect me? I have a friend that he throws his bills in the garbage all the time, without shredding it. How can you relate this to like the younger generation?
Well, if you're not cautious about who you give that number to and who has possession of that information, people can steal your identity. They can take out a mortgage on your home without you knowing. They can take out credit cards. And once identity theft takes over, you have a real problem. Now in New Jersey residents are entitled to lock their credit reports. They can go to Experian and whatever the other two companies are, I think there's the three major ones, and you can say, I wish, under New Jersey law, to lock my credit report. You fill out the proper paperwork. It's pretty simple. All it has to be is a letter. They disclose this information online. If you go to their websites, you send it in and it's locked. That means if anybody tries to open up a credit card in your name, they can't do it without the proper code. So if you do not give that code to anyone else and you yourself open it, if you're going to take out, say, a new phone with a new vendor, you call the company for $5. They will open up that credit report specifically for that vendor or for a 3-day period. And you can open up that credit report and then it gets closed again. You protect yourself. I've done it. I've tested it. I've gone to a store. They ask me if I want to open up a credit card. I say, go ahead, and they can't get in. And that's just what I want to hear. I want to know that without the proper code that's known only to me, that no one can get in. So they cannot get a card in my name. They cannot change anything on my credit report, and that's my private information. And they can't get a credit report without my code or without me releasing that information.
Right.
And that's the way I want it as a private citizen.
Now, with the Affordable Care Act, one of the things I want to really touch on with you, Joe, as a family man, how does this affect the way you look at how you're taking care of your family and how you budget things? As a father, how do you see this?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dan. Thanks. You know, it's something that I don't hear anyone talking about. It's what's the psychological effect on the family? What's you know, I'm a father. I have 2 kids. My wife and I have raised our kids. They're in high school now, and we budget. We have a college, hopefully enough money to send our kids to college. And we've really been very careful about our kids' health. It's something that we control. We're their parents. And what we've seen, at least I've seen with the Affordable Care Act, is that some of that responsibility is taken away from us. We have less choice about what we can buy. Our kids are getting services that I don't want my daughter getting some of the services that are part of the Affordable Care Act. And so it's putting my decision-making and my wife's decision-making in the hands of government. And it's also costing more. I mean, my wife and I decided to have 2 kids. The way this is working out, we're going to be supporting 4 kids. It feels more like we live in China than it does in the US right now, when we're being really mandated about what we as parents are responsible for and what's being taken away from us. In my mind, it's really no different from what has gone on since the Great Society, and where they've really tried to take the parent out of the equation. It's further erosion and undermining of the family unit in this country.
And the sad fact about that is that most families, I mean, we live in the New Jersey, New York area where both parents are working. They're working very long hours. They would love the government to take over. How would you see that devaluing the family values?
Well, you know, each family should make their own decision. As Joe said, Joe knows what he wants to do.
Right.
He and his wife have discussed it. They've come together on the issue. And someone else may not feel exactly the same way. But the parents are being cut out of the decisions for their children. The children are too young. They cannot make these decisions on their own. And you're kind of leaving those kids out there with the impression that everything is fine, where they haven't gotten to that mature enough point where they can make those good decisions for themselves. Every parent wants the best outcome for their child.
Right.
And in that regard, the parent has to be involved.
The parent has to be, and the parent has to run that. And what we're seeing is, I mean, I feel violated. I was angry this weekend. I was trying to figure out why. And it was really because I think our choices are being taken away from us. I think our government is dictating to us. And this has to be repealed. It has to come. It has to. There's no doubt about it for the family itself.
Okay, yeah, I put myself in those shoes because I'm going to be 30 next month in December, and with the Affordable Care Act, they've upped it to 26, where you can be covered under your parents. I look in my perspective, where yes, I'm a little younger than most of the people that are actually engaged. If I was able to be under my parents' plan until I was 26, I would have not taken those extra steps to push myself to better myself.
They're encouraging you to be a child.
Yeah.
You know, and they really are. At some point, you have to become a man, and you have to take responsibilities for yourself. And it's so apparent in our society where individual responsibility is something no one wants to face. It's something that we look to government to take. People don't want to own their own lives. And you said, you know, we live in an area where people work a lot of hours, and some people would hand that ability off to the government. But that's not a responsible adult way to view it. And to have a child and then want government or someone you don't know, at least if there's a nanny state, you know the nanny. In this case, you don't know who's making these decisions about your kids. And it really is an erosion of our whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to touch on, being a 30-year-old Tea Party patriot,
Right.
I have seen in my own experience, I've seen younger people getting engaged, and they know that they're being lied to. I mean, there was I think it was in a college in California now. They've actually came out and said, and came out against Obamacare. And with that, it actually leads into late night comedy. We actually have a clip of late night comedians going against Obamacare. Cut to the clip.
How are the Democrats going to spin this turd?
I think the number one point about the rollout is that there's huge interest. 19 million individual visits to the website. That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. You've angered a lot of people.
The number one worry before we started was, are people going to be interested? Will people sign up? And the answer to that is overwhelmingly yes.
Yeah, but their number one worry was, will I be able to get health insurance out of this thing? And the answer to that appears to be 90%.
8 million people ahead of you in line. Your estimated wait time is forever.
It would be ironic to die while waiting on hold for health insurance, right?
Don't worry, the White House just announced that it is bringing in the best and brightest tech experts to fix the glitches on the Obamacare website, which is a great plan. You know what would have been a better plan is hiring the best and brightest tech experts to make the Obamacare website.
Obamacare by morning. Why is this taking so long?
I'm going to wind up with hemorrhoids if I sit here till dawn. We'll have cataracts and dementia. Oh, this is getting on my last nerve. Obamacare by morning, over 6 people served.
Welcome back from that hilarious clip. I actually watched it right before we came onto the show, and it was just amazing. Definitely a YouTube trend. Now, dealing with the serious issues of the day after watching that clip, I actually want to dive into an issue today where Obama is actually going against the Affordable Care Act and saying that he wants to change the law. What's your views, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, look, he came out and said originally that if you like your insurance, you can keep it. And of course, it was a lie, and it was done absolutely intentionally to get this law passed and to get the election won last year. And now, just recently, he's come out now and said, well, now if you got canceled, you can keep it again. Mm-hmm. Now, he has no authority. You know, we didn't elect him dictator. We didn't elect him king. Mm-hmm. He is a president with very limited authority under the separation of powers. And he is changing laws. And people seem to allow it. And I don't understand in this country why there isn't a huge, this is a game changer for our country. And there should be a backlash against this. And I think we're starting to see it. I think maybe people are so desperate to keep their old insurance policies that they would be almost willing to go along with this. But it's an inexcusable, it's an impeachable offense, and it also is compelling insurance companies to start selling a product that they don't sell anymore. So not only did the Affordable Care Act compel people to buy a product, which I believe is unconstitutional, and I think most of the country did, now they're asking companies to sell a product. So where does it end when a government can tell people what to buy and tell other people what to sell? Mm-hmm. It makes us subjects rather than citizens.
Okay. I really don't think that people grasp exactly what's going on here. Yeah. Michelle.
Well, I think Joe hit the nail right on the head. Uh-huh. It's not constitutional.
Right.
And the Congress, that's their job to legislate, create the laws, and the executive power either approves or vetoes. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it has been. It's been that way for a number of years to protect people. And no wonder Joe feels the way he does, because his family is no longer protected. I'm not protected, you're no longer protected. Just recently, we, a New Jersey Tea Party Coalition, we had a tweet that went on the Bret Baier show.
Really?
And that tweet, we asked the question, if Obamacare was deemed to be a tax by the Supreme Court, how can Obama himself, as the president, exempt people or groups from a tax? Well, you know, we have to make up our minds. It was deemed to be a tax, so it's not a penalty, so it's legal. Well, if it's a tax, then he can't be exempting other groups.
Right, you
and
can't.
people.
It's unconstitutional.
So
Yep.
what are we doing? Do we have any framework? Why are we not talking about this more? And Joe's right, but I feel that people are busy. They're busy with their children. They're busy
I'm one of
with
them.
their parents. They're busy with their jobs.
And they count on that. You know, when they put these laws in, they count on people being busy and being distracted, and people hearing what they want to hear. When they heard him say, "You can keep it," they said, "The president said that," and that's all they relied on. So, I mean, it's part of the strategy. When you create chaos, you make people, they don't even want to look at it. They want to go back and focus on their own thing that they're doing in their lives and let all the chaos go on around them, because they got enough to deal with in their own lives, especially when they're being taxed, when they're being harassed, when all these things that are going on in this country that are affecting them directly. The other stuff seems like it's kind of peripheral. But now they're starting to see it, that it's real. And the elections, as Obama said himself, have consequences.
And see, the thing is, you know, I'm part of that group. I just started a new job. You know, I'm working long hours. You know, and on top of that, I have to go home and take care of my wife. You know, I'm busy too.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm different than most individuals, but I'm engaged because I know that it does have consequences. I just don't see how people out there don't realize how it affects their lives. You just go to the supermarket, for instance. The price of food, the price of your milk has gotten up.
Yeah.
But people don't see that. People can't tie the two
They don't
together.
see the connection.
They're printing all that money. It's the inflation has to follow it.
Yeah.
You can't be printing that money. It's not worth the dollar anymore. The dollar is just not worth it. And as Joe, going back to the point that Joe made before, it dovetails with what you're talking about. Young people are not all engaged for a number of reasons. The economy is not good.
Yes.
The jobs are not there. Obamacare is a job killer. We know that for small businesses. It's going to be a job killer for big businesses. When you dovetail that with Common Core at the schools,
Right.
you have this gigantic a government interfering in what people are doing and what people are having their normal lives. So the education is no longer between the teacher, the student, and the parents.
Right.
And you can't buy a soda, you know, because it's 16 ounces, and, you know, that's going to come back again, you know, to haunt the people in New York City. So why are we relinquishing all this control? And as you say, a lot of these people are not engaged. They're looking for jobs. There are no jobs out there. We're talking about a president that wanted to, you know, take our infrastructure with our economy. He promised jobs. He promised prosperity. He promised a livelihood. But that's not what's happening. So you have to wonder, is it incompetence or is he disengaged?
I want to ask both of you because both of you are both business professionals. In the business world, when it comes to employees, how exactly is the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, going to affect the daily life employee, especially if they work for an insurance agency?
Well, I mean, I work in the financial services industry. Right now, it has been, the big companies have been exempted. And that was, which is unconstitutional. I mean,
Unions were exempted.
Right. And the reason that was done was because the election was coming up.
Right.
And we're going to see this time next year that people are thrown off their health care, and if nothing changes in the meantime. So the 5% or whatever they're quoting now, which is around 15 million people, is going to look like child's play compared to the 80% when they really get thrown off, and when companies say, you know what, I'm not paying that. Why should I pay that extra money? I'll just let them go on the exchanges themselves, which in my view was the original intent of the law. It was to get all the companies to get rid of the health care, put everyone out on the street, as it were. And then you have the government coming in as the white knight and creating a single payer type system where everyone is under the government's thumb directly, rather than having any insurance companies at all. And that's where this is headed, and that is tyranny.
And actually, it's funny you bring up the white knight issue. You have today John McCain coming out now that it's out that it's a train wreck. You have John McCain switching politics, taking the view of Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
I think honestly, you can label Tea Party, Republican, whatever label you want to put out there. I think as Americans, we could unite on just the fact that politicians are corrupt, and that we're not always told the truth.
Yeah, I mean, the founders, sorry, Michelle, the founders didn't envision John McCain being in Congress for 30 years and Senate. They thought a couple of terms, 6 years at the most. Back then, when we were founded, it was like 2 years to 3 years was the average amount of time people spent in the House. And the Senate wasn't elected by the people. The Senate was elected by the state legislature. So it was much more a state kind of, the senator was much more representing the state rather than the federal government. So we've created a whole infrastructure, a whole society of people who just, all they want to do is get reelected, and it's all a power thing. I never was in favor of term limits, because I want people to have the freedom to vote for whoever they want. But when the House of Representatives turns over less than the Politburo, you know that you got an issue, and we have to put in term limits and throw the bums out. And we talked about growing up before. Well, that's what the Congress should do right now. They should grow up. They should man up. They should vote this to get rid of this law. And then they should vote with impeachment against Obama.
Okay, and what's your view, Michelle?
Well, I think not all politicians are corrupt. I think some of them have allegiances in the wrong place. And that's why people, whether you're an average citizen, whether you're a Tea Party patriot, whether you're even Occupy Wall Street for that spectrum, everyone should have a say, and everyone should voice their opinion and look at who their legislators are. You really must investigate. You cannot leave this to anyone, but you must get out there and you must do the due diligence, look at who's running, and choose the person who's going to the best for your family and you as a citizen.
Right, like the school board and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. Yes, the school board has to be vetted. Everyone should be looked at. You should have some dialogue. Walk up to them, ask them how they feel about something.
I believe the most people vote or get their influence to vote right before, like 2 days before the election, because 2 days before the election I get that knock in my neighborhood from the supporters, and a lot of people don't spend that time to research and look into the actual politicians that are running. They just say, oh, okay, that's a D, I'm going to vote for that. Oh, that's an R, I'm going to vote for that.
Yeah, they don't do it until they get in the voting booth.
Yeah, very important. You mentioned that. We got we recently, with the recent election, I got in the mail, and the running people, the people who are running, the candidates, they are saying, well, we got this grant, we got that grant, we got this other grant, and all about the infrastructure, about how they spent money in the town. But people aren't realizing those grants are still your money. You are still taxed. So whether it's a grant that comes from Washington or a grant that comes, from another source, basically it's your money.
Right.
And really, that money has to be spent wisely.
Okay. Actually, we talked before this, and we talked about the misinformation on the pre-existing conditions. This is actually something that I didn't myself know about. You want to elaborate on it?
Yeah, we hear a lot about pre-existing conditions. And to be brief on that, it's not as if you have a pre-existing condition that you have no rights. It's been enforced for many years. As long as you go from one policy to another policy, there is no pre-existing exemption. And if you haven't had a job in quite a long time, and you haven't had insurance, once you go into the company, they may have a pre-existing caveat on there. But there is a period of elimination. There's an elimination period. So according to the design, after a period of time, you will be covered according to the design of the plan. So to blanketly say people are not covered, you know, the pre-existing condition, you know, has to be included, it has been covered. And people have been protected. And if you go from one job and you have a brief period out, you can go into COBRA. And that's a way to do it. When I was young, when I was your age, I worked for a company that folded. I went for a catastrophic plan. I was young, I was healthy. I only was worried if I had a broken leg or if I was, you know, fell down a stair or something like that, for something that I would be in the hospital. Remember, years ago, we only had the hospitalization. We didn't even have the major medical. So people need to look at healthcare a little differently and question what people are saying to you. Don't just take the sound bite and swallow that sound bite. You really need to investigate.
Don't you think it's crazy when you hear the president or these people saying, "Oh, you had an inferior plan"? I think that's what really made me mental. I liked people liked what plan they had. It worked for them. It was the right price. It had the things that they needed. And you have somebody telling them that was an inferior plan. I'm going to give you a better plan, and I'm going to charge you a lot more for it, and you're going to be happy. Like, Danny, like, it's crazy. You know, that's not our country. That's not what we were raised in.
You cannot put 30 more million people on a plan and expect the rates will go down. Your either service is going to go down, or your taxes or your contribution to that plan has to go up. It's the same thing.
And we haven't even talked about the doctors, right?
Right.
That's the issue too. I mean, how are the doctors dealing with all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, my wife is actually in the medical field, and her doctors are not happy at all. Yeah. And they foresee what's coming. And unfortunately, some of the American public also does not see what's coming. Well, let's take a break. We're going to come back and talk more issues with Michelle and Joe. We're going to wrap up here with Michelle and Joe. You can find us at njtpartycoalition.org. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation, and you can check us out on our YouTube channel. For now, good night, America.